Our next guest on the pod is a badass ultra runner from across the pond. She was a non-running smoker who went to running Badwater last year. She's great friends with one of our very own pod fam, and most of you see her on the Peloton screens when you're running at home. We are wicked excited to welcome Susie Chan to the On the Runs podcast. What's up, Susie?
Hello, how are we doing? Thank you so much for having me on and chatting.
We are so excited, Susie. I've been following along with you for quite a while now between Peloton runs and now with your new book that just dropped. Oh, I am just so excited we get to chat today. So welcome,
thanks, Erica.
welcome to the On the Runs podcast.
Thank you. Do you have a favorite run, type of run on Peloton, Erica?
Let's see. You do all of the longest, like
I
the
do the
runs,
long
like
ones.
60 minutes plus. I love those because
Okay.
I'm always out there. I don't always get on the tread because I do have the Peloton tread, but I love you do 80s runs too. Those are fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, good. Okay.
yeah, I am on board with any of the long runs that you do. And it's just nice to have an extra little encouragement in my ear as I go.
Love that. 80s long run. Okay, I've worked out the sweet spot for you.
Yes, you have.
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Erica is like our designated podcast. She has like a Peloton streak of thousands of days or something. Every day she's doing
not
a Peloton
streak,
something.
but like I love the Peloton. The
Yeah.
tread is like my new favorite toy.
It's
I do have a
amazing.
bike, but the tread's way better.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love that you love the tread.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been to the studios?
I have been to the New York studio once, but I actually I came to London for the 2021 London Marathon, and I went by the studio in London.
Pop in next time you're in London. I'll get you in a class.
I will reach out. Thank you.
Well, I might be in London in a few weeks, actually.
Let me know.
For a quick layover, I'm trying to figure it out. But we actually have a friend of the pod. We call everyone who comes on the pod our pod fam. And we
Okay.
had someone you're really close to on the podcast before, and I might take, like I said, this long layover to go for a run with him. But we're friends with Mike Seaman.
Lovely, Mike. So I've known Mike for, I don't know, actually. I'm going to say maybe 7 years, maybe a little bit longer.
Excellent.
Yeah, we met because he is, I think he's now the CEO of a huge event here in the UK called the National Running Show, which is a lot of the run community come together. It's in January. It's really vibey. And they took a bit of a punt on me because all those years ago, I was a bit of a hobby runner. I think I might have even had a full-time job. I hadn't gone sort of full-time with the running. And they asked me if I could present the National Running Show. And I was like, of course, I can present anything. I had no experience at all. I did it, absolutely loved it. And it was a brilliant event. And they've had me back every single year since. And then it turned out that Mike actually lives reasonably close to me. Mm-hmm. And also, I think we have a very similar approach to running in that I just need to say, Mike, do you want to run a 100-mile race? Because he's easily persuaded. He's very easily persuaded. And he'll just say, yes. Yeah, he says, honestly, he just needs to suggest something. He's like, yeah, sure. And he just signs up without even looking to see if he's free on the day. And so he lives quite close to me. And I just used to get him to sign up to races with me. So I'd like to do races with friends. And then we met a little bit during lockdown when you weren't really allowed to sort of, you couldn't really go very far or see too many people. We used to meet and just run together. So that was quite good. So, yeah, I've known him for, I don't even know, 7 years, I guess.
I need more friends like the two of you. I cannot get anybody to sign up for 100 milers with me.
Mike, just ask Mike, he'll do it.
Mike will do it. Mike will run in a costume with you. He'll do it all. He did say, you have some really good friends who just, convince you to do some really stupid things like running 100 miles. And he goes, my friend who does that, her name is Susie.
Yeah, it normalizes what is not quite normal behavior when you have friends like this. And also there's a small group of people, I mean, who I run with in my own personal running. And I will literally just put in the group who wants to run 30 miles on Saturday. And they'll be like, yeah, sure. And then we just all go and run 30 miles on a Saturday. So he's part of that group of people that I can sort of lean on, and vice versa when one of the other of us is training for a race. There's only a small group of people I know that will quite happily run 30 miles as a training run, like on a Wednesday morning or whatever. Mike is one of them.
Hang on tight because those are so hard to come by.
Yeah.
Susie, you mentioned one thing before we get to know you. Actually, you mentioned he asked you to speak at the National Run Show, and we go to the one here in Boston for the Boston Run Show that they
Oh,
put on. But he said he asked you to speak before running became full time. Were you
yeah.
a speaker at the time? Was that something
No,
you're comfortable with, or were you
I
like,
had no, not at all. No. So I had a full-time job. So before Peloton and all the running, I had a 20-year career working in the museum and gallery sector. So I studied at university art history and conservation, and straight from university I went to work in one of the oldest museums in the world, the British Museum, which is our sort of flagship museum here in the UK. It holds all the government collections. And so I sort of landed my dream job, which paid awful, terrible, diabolical pay. Like I was so poor, but it was my dream job. And I worked with some of the finest museum objects in the world. And we're talking Tutankhamun's, Egyptian stuff. We had some of the finest Asian collections. Absolutely fantastic. What an absolute privilege. And I loved that job. I loved that job so much. It was exactly what I wanted to do since I was a child. And I did that, and I worked in that sector for nearly 20 years. So I had no experience of where I am now. You couldn't have predicted it. Not in, just even if you told me, I would have thought I was not capable at all of ending up where I have ended up. My life sort of just slowly careered off what I thought it was going to do, and I ended up somehow here doing a thing I love and sharing the enthusiasm of the thing that I love with millions of people. And it's incredible. I honestly, sometimes I don't know how I've got here, and I can't believe I've got here, but it's such a joy and privilege. I love my job.
That is quite the shift, but that has to be one of the coolest professions from our pod fam that we've heard, because we have
If you
your
need,
lawyers
if you need to,
and your
yeah. If you need to, like, move a mummy like 2,000 miles across the globe, or hang a
we
multi-million
know
pound
who
painting,
can handle it.
you can
Yes,
come to me.
absolutely.
Yeah,
That's too cool.
Well, I love that you say you love your job because as I was actually the other day, we dropped our best of 2024. Mike was on it. One of the quotes he said was, I love my job because my hobby is my job. And running is a hobby for a lot of us. And when you can make it your job and your work, like anything you do, when you can make your hobby your job, that's the ultimate, right?
Well, I was genuinely a little bit worried. There was a genuine worry because, like, it was the thing which I did outside of my job, my normal career. It was like my thing, and then I did worry. But when I decided to make a shift, I started to get like sponsorship deals, and I was working with different brands for activations of trainer launches, and there was like a crunch point where and then I was doing lots of races, and there was a bit of a crunch point where I probably wasn't doing my full-time job incredibly well, or the running, because I was doing it was slowly
Oh, too
taking over.
much.
It was, well, it was fine, but I needed to make a decision. Like, either I'm going to do this, or I'm going to, like, sort of step back from the opportunities that were coming up through the running and just sort of do my normal job. So I was turning down sort of quite a lot of opportunities, and I thought, I'm just going to take the plunge. And I was no spring chicken when that came along, but I did have a little thought in my head, like, what if the thing I love doing as my hobby, if I'm doing it all the time, will it take a bit of joy out of it? If I'm like, feel like I have to do it now, would
Right.
that make it feel different for me? Turns out it doesn't. I just I just love it. So I'm just very lucky.
That's great to hear, because we kind of feel that way about this podcast. Like, Eric and I decided when we first started that once it started to feel like work, we were gonna step away and until it became a passion again, because that is absolutely what this podcast is. It's just us talking running with incredible people like yourself, just having a blast. And yeah, that's what we're I mean, hopefully someday we could make this a career.
Yeah.
It might take a little while, but who knows?
You never know. Look where I ended up, honestly.
But
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you got to where you ended up. So you're from across the pond. We're here in New Hampshire. Talk about your life before running and Peloton.
Well, I was just doing my museum job, and and then I had to move out of London for a period of time, and I was just at home with my daughter in a bit of a rut. And then that's when the fitness came in. My brother sort of talked me into doing a half marathon with him, because he was training for a marathon, and he wanted to just tick off a marathon. He had this sort of like things I should do in my life, and one of them was a marathon. He's quite a high achiever, and I was just sort of bimbling around in my museum job. and he sort of made me sign up for this half marathon with him. Because it was very near where I lived, and I don't know whether because he just wanted a companion to run with, or whether he thought maybe she could do with getting outside a bit more. Whatever his reason was, I don't know. So I signed up, and I genuinely, I didn't even know how far a half marathon was. I was like, it just sounded like a horrific distance to do. I was like, oh, and I thought maybe I'll give it a go. He was very persuasive, so I signed up and started training for this half marathon. I didn't really know how far I was going. I didn't have a watch. I didn't even have proper trainers on. And then the day came about for this half marathon, and I was terrified. I didn't want to do it. And he basically knocked on my door and like dragged me out the door, and I started the race. And then somebody, we were at the just before the race about to start, somebody said, "Oh, do you like trail running?" And I was like, "What's trail running?" I don't even know what it meant. And then we started running, and I was running up these hills through these trees, just trying not to fall over. It was quite it was hard. It was really, really hard work. But I was so in the moment because I'd never run on a trail, and these were I was going through bushes, going through quite thick woodland and mud, and so I was so concentrated on just trying to stay upright. Before I knew it, I'd reached 9 miles, and I think to that point in my life, that was the first I'd ever run in my life, and I had a real moment where I realised I was going to finish a half marathon. And I think as runners, you have a moment, don't you? Sometimes you'll be running and then you suddenly think, this is in the bag, I've got this, and it gives you a bit of energy, it gives you something confident, whatever it is. And then I just started running really hard and crossed the finish line, and I'd never felt that sense of achievement ever in my life. I was just so proud of myself for having done that, and it was a real turning point. So whilst I was working, I just started running as a hobby to try and get healthier, and I really enjoyed it, and it escalated very quickly from that point.
I love that your brother just threw you into the deep end. Like, just,
he
hey,
used to blame for all of this. Yeah, because I genuinely, if he hadn't decided he wants to do a marathon, I'd probably still be sitting in a museum covered in dust somewhere right now.
And if he didn't get you out the door that day, because you're like, I don't want to go, and he came and picked you up and got you out the door, like, we wouldn't be talking today.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it. No, not at all. No.
Kudos to your brother. What's his name?
Alan.
Nice way to go, Alan.
Thank you, Alan. Taking the credit for all of this, you know.
That's always the hardest part, is getting out the door. Like, even just doing a training run, especially if it's not a good weather day, just getting out the door, you just got to do it, and then you can finish.
I don't know what the weather's like in New Hampshire, but in the UK, I mean, we're sort of famous for our rain. And it can be quite inclement sometimes, but so yeah.
Generally, it's pretty nice here, but it's just cold at this point. Yeah, right now it's December, but dropping in January, it's going to be snowy and just hard to get out that door.
You know what we have here? We have seasons. We have 4 seasons, and it's always, it's not like Florida where it's always warm or wicked hot. It's really hot in the summer. It's extremely cold in the winter. Fall and spring are kind of like, I don't know what I want to be. I kind of want to be warm and I kind of want to be cold. We see these funny videos where someone's like, I love living here, and it's like a beautiful fall day, and the next day it's winter. It's like, this sucks.
We have 4 seasons, but the parameter of temperature between the summer to the winter is not. So summer only goes up by a few degrees, and then, so it's a lot of cloud. We get a lot of cloud cover here, so it could be summer or it could be spring or autumn. It's pretty similar the weather here, but yeah.
I was actually watching a documentary a while ago. One of my favorite triathletes is from the UK. His name is Tim Don. I don't know if you ever heard of Tim Don, but he's doing a training ride in the UK, and he's talking about the cloud cover, and he says they call it an English summer, I think it was called, where it's just always a layer of clouds.
Yeah. The sun's there somewhere. The temperature's a bit higher. You don't see the sun. We will genuinely go for like 3.5 weeks without seeing any sunshine through the clouds, and it's pretty.
Oh no.
I know. So when it is sunny, we go absolutely bananas when the sun comes out. If it's warm and sunny, honestly, we just go absolutely bananas. We just like barbecues, everything. Yeah.
Can't come into work today. I'm sick.
Susie, you were talking about one thing. I like to call it the hook. Like, sometimes there's a hook that gets you into running. For a lot of people, it might be a run club, the running community, the people you run with. Some other times it's the race. It's the feeling of the race. What was the hook for you?
It was that first half marathon. It really was. I just the afterglow of how that felt. I think I'm assuming just runners listen to this podcast. There's something about that first medal, that first race, because it's terrifying. Let's be really honest. It's when you're a new runner and you've not done a race before, being in that sort of race environment, it's intimidating. And then going through it and finishing the race and having that feeling, I think everybody can remember their first race. It's something which doesn't leave you. And so for me, I never thought I could run 13 miles without stopping. I just, let alone through some trees, I couldn't believe I had done it. And I was telling everybody about this, people that weren't even interested, just random people in lifts are like, I've run a half marathon, because I was so, it really made me feel so good about myself. And it was the first time that anything really had made me feel like, I just felt so proud of myself. And I thought, well, I can do it. I can obviously do a 10K. So I need to turn up to a 10K. And then the next thing you know, you've signed up to another half marathon, a marathon, and then it sort of escalates. So for me, it was that feeling, but I was very much a lone runner at the start. Not really. I didn't really have the courage to join a running club, because I thought that, they're all going to be super fast over there being brilliant, and I don't really know what I'm doing. I didn't have the watch. I didn't have, the right clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I did finally pluck up the courage. It took 2 goes to go to the run club. It was my local running club called Farnham Runners. And I drove all the way there, and then I could see people going into, there's like a little clubhouse, like a little building. And I just bottled it. I just sat in my car and I thought, I'm not going to. So I turned around and drove home and then went for a run by myself. And I just thought, I can't do this. And then probably about another month later, I was like, no, go. Maybe you'll meet some people. I don't know, learn more about running. And I was there, and I was just sort of hovering around the door, nearly decided to turn around again. And somebody went, oh, come in. And they sort of ushered me in through the door. And then I was stood there petrified. And it was brilliant, because they were the ones that really did introduce me into trail running. I did that one race, just ran on the roads again. And I'd lived in this town for a few years. And I was just running up and down the road to, the shops and back again.
Mm-hmm.
And we would be running along with this group, and I'd be just in the beautiful countryside, and I had no idea how beautiful it was. And it was literally on my doorstep. And and when you are in that sort of environment, you're just sort of lost in it, and it's not so much about the minute miles, but they taught me so much about running. They taught me how to run downhill very efficiently. And it was a lot of club races and things. So I was doing cross country, I was doing sort of road races, and it was a real sort of year of running. And then, club championships, and, and I did quite well in a few races. And it was the moment really where I realized at that point how vibrant and encouraging and enabling the running community was, because up until that point it was just me going out for a run by myself, and that was it opened the door into a huge community of people, and it's just sort of snowballs and snowballs.
I love that you finally got out and got to experience the running community, and even got to explore your backyard, basically.
I know.
And you did mention that it snowballed and your races escalated. So where did you go from there?
I went to the desert. Within about 2 years. I was reading Runner's World in the UK, because I was a runner, I was into running, and so I was buying Runner's World. And there was an article about a race called the Marathon des Sables in there, and I had no idea people ran further than a marathon. I'd never heard the word ultra marathon, and I was looking at these glossy pages of this beautiful desert, blue skies, sand dunes. It just looked incredible. And then I read the article, which is a little bit more, okay, that sounds quite tough. So just to explain, the Marathon des Sables is a 6-day stage race through the Sahara Desert. And you run, it changes year on year, but approximately 150 to 160 miles. And you sleep in the desert. You live in the desert, and the hardest thing about it isn't really the miles. It's all the sand dunes or the heat. It's the fact that you are, it's serious heat. It's the fact that you're something called self-sufficient. So I needed to carry everything I needed to survive for the whole week on my back. So all my sleeping gear, survival kit if I get bitten by something venomous, anything I needed to make a signal to a distress flare, and then also crucially the food. So you're carrying a week's worth of food on your back, which weighs quite a bit, so I had to adapt my training. But I saw this in a magazine. I thought, oh my goodness, what on earth is this? And then the internet wasn't what it is now. It was a lot more restricted. There was hardly anything on the internet about this race other than the entry page. And there was a huge wait list. And so I just put my name on the wait list. And I thought, I'll get some information about the race. And I didn't realise, I can remember exactly where I was when I found out that the reason there's a wait list is because everybody gets injured or drops out. And then I would probably be running this race. And I can remember my blood just ran cold. I was sitting on a train outside Waterloo and I was like, oh my, I kept getting these emails saying, you've moved up. And then I was like starting to sweat, like, I'm going to end up in this race.
What do I do? What do I do? Oh no, I made a mistake.
And I ended up in the race and ran through the desert, and I just I came back a different person. I was not at all. My experience of this point was one marathon, just so you know. One marathon.
So you were just honestly off to the races. You're going 0 to 60. Like.
I went, yeah. And what happened was, like, I started to tell people about it, and they were like, "What are you doing? You know, you can't do that." And weirdly, the more people said you can't do that, you know, you're not capable, you're not experienced, you need to be all of these things, the more I put them all in like a sort of ammunition mental bank. And I swear to God, in the longest stage, which was, I can't remember how long it was, I don't know, 45 miles or something in the sand dunes, it was all I could think about. Was like, all these people think I can't do this.
You got to prove them wrong at that point. This is like extra motivation.
It was so motivating.
And that one, you've actually done that a few times.
I have,
I learned that from your wonderful book, Trails and Tribulations.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, what drove you to keep going back to it?
Yeah, it's quite well documented in that book. I don't know, if I'm honest. So people have their sort of their space where they feel happy running in, and a lot of people here in the UK, they love going to the mountains. They love, you know, we're very close to the Alps, so people fly 1 hour on a plane and you're running around Chamonix, having a wonderful time. It's very, very close. So a lot of people love running in the mountains, and we have beautiful Lake District here, and a lot of ultra runners, particularly in the UK, they end up going to Italy, to France, to run in the mountains. Well, I don't like mountains. I don't like mountains. I don't like heights. The MDS taught me that I don't like heights because a couple of mountains you have to scale, and terrible fear of heights. But I think we all have a particular happy place where we run, and I have two, and I'm very, very happy running by the sea. I love being by water, and it just feels nice. And the other place I really love is being in a desert, and I don't know why. I'm always drawn to these desert races. And I went back another time to run that race, and I was really good shape then, so I went back and I was an elite, so I did really well, which was performed way beyond my capabilities. So I had a really good race, and then they invited me back again, and I had a terrible time, and then I'd already promised one of my best friends that I would run this race with her if she ever decided to do it, and she decided to do it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go back. Go back to the desert again, and so I've done it 4 times now, but I would probably go back. It's less intimidating the more you do it, I would say. But
you learn so much every time you do it. So
it doesn't get easier though. It doesn't get easier. Just the hardest thing about the Marathon des Sables, without a shadow of a doubt, is the food, because you literally, I can't carry a lot of weight on my back because I'm 5'3". I'm not very tall, and if you're like a 6 foot guy, you're going to be able to carry quite a big pack. I have to carry the legal minimum calories I'm allowed. That you're not allowed. They check you're not allowed to go under a certain amount of calories. So I'm normally about 2,500 calorie deficit. Yeah. I'm running on a 2,000 calorie deficit a day. So I am obsessed about pizzas and roast potatoes. Day 3, I'm just like, all you can think about is just having food. And I mean, I lose, I don't know, well over half a stone in a week. It's you come back and I can see my ribs. It's like, because I'm having to starve myself to be able to carry the things I need to survive, and I physically can't carry anymore. So it's that for me is always the hardest thing.
That is an insane challenge.
But the last day of one of them, I think maybe the third, second, I had I ran a marathon on probably about 120 calories. I was
Ooh.
it's not good.
Recommended, but
not recommended. It was not good, but it's all I had left, and I was like, "Well, I'm going to have to eat this and go." And I just went. I was honestly, it was. You should have seen the feast I had when I came out that desert. It's just like it's like a non-stop meal. Yeah,
that's something else. Erica here loves to do all the ultra marathons, and one of the reasons she goes is for the food and the snacks. They have a big pizza party at one of them, and
yeah, this is it. This is why the Marathon des Sables is hard, because of the food situation.
Right.
Honestly. Yeah, I'm so used to be able to, like, eat a pizza basically.
That is the best part. I mean, you are putting in so much effort, time on your feet. You earn a nice snack afterwards.
Yeah. This is definitely the hardest part for me in that race is the nutrition.
Crazy. Love it.
Yes.
You
said at one point you were juggling like 2 jobs, your museum job and then running. How did running actually become a job for you?
I just gave up the museum thing. I think there was one particular moment where I got offered a sponsorship deal, and then it was a retainer, it was like a 2-year deal with a brand, and I just thought, okay, it's now or never. It's now or never. And I just had to take this huge leap of faith to be able to do it. And I sort of started running. I think I just hit it all at the right time. I don't think I'm particularly well. I mean, my results show you that I'm not particularly better than another average runner. But when I started, Instagram was very new. Instagram, what was it, 2011, 2012? That's when I started running. So I started running about the same time as this app, and so I was documenting bits and pieces. I'm not saying I had loads and loads of followers, but I think I just hit the trajectory at the right time, and I was just documenting my running, the good bits, the bad bits, mainly focusing around these big ultra marathons that I was doing, and there was a very vibrant running community in those apps, and I think from that, then you just get brands come up to you, like a little sports brand, saying, we've got this trainer launch, can you come fly over here and help us launch this trainer? And they'll offer you money to come and help activate certain things. So they were just becoming more and more and more, and it was very hard for me to juggle my own life with my daughter, with my job, and then trying to do this running thing. So I just took a leap of faith I just took a leap of faith that I could probably make a living of it. And then I was doing race commentary as well. That just came about because obviously I was doing the National Running Show and I could talk. So I started, and my first commentating gig was a really big half marathon. And they were like, "Are you fine with that?" I was like, "Absolutely no problem at all." I didn't tell them it was the first time at all. They had no clue. They had no clue I'd never done this before in my life. So yeah, and actually that was fine. Nobody knew. Nobody found out. They will know now. Yes. And so I was doing race commentating, and so all these things were coming in, and I just didn't have time to do both. And I just remember thinking, I don't know how old I was. Must have been about 38. And I just thought, well, I'll do this. What, the museums are still going to be there. That stuff is still going anywhere. Not going. So I thought I'll just do this for a couple of years and then go back to museums. Why not? See what happens. And then I was sort of 2 years into that, and then lockdown happened. Then I was like, oh no. there's no work. And then Peloton slid into the DMs.
Really?
Yeah.
So they did.
Were you ever like a coach, or did you ever do any kind of coaching or instructing before that?
So I did. So with my local running club, I got my coaching qualifications and I sort of ran, and we did sort of group runs, that sort of thing. So I did do it, but in a run club environment. So a bit of coaching experience, and then my own running as well. So I'd coach a few people 1-to-1 as well if they're doing ultra marathons. Particularly, it was always a particular sort of demographic. So I think that we've got lots of marathon coaches out there. So I sort of honed in on females of a certain age doing their first ultra marathon. So I'd write training programs for them.
So cool.
So Peloton just slid into your DMs. It wasn't like a job application. It wasn't like, hey, I would like to do this. They found you. That's so cool.
I think they were just looking at a lot of people. They were launching the Tread in the UK, and they'd invite you along to audition.
How
And
was that
yeah.
experience then? Because that's so
Oh,
cool.
I was like, are you sure? Do you know how old I am? Was my first question. Was like, do you know how old I am? Was my first question. And they were like, we don't care. And that's what I love about this company. They're like, it's like we're like this, like
Absolutely.
we're after a vibe. We're after somebody who's enthusiastic, somebody who knows what they're doing. And so I was like, oh, okay, maybe this company sounds quite cool. And I went into the whole yeah, I just went into that audition like just with very much of the mindset that I'm just me, and I will be me. And if they don't like me, then it's not for me. So I just went into it like just like a normal, I don't know, just a normal version of myself. I didn't sort of amplify anything or try to be somebody else or a
Yeah, you
version of
can't
myself that I
sell
thought they
somebody else.
wanted.
You can only sell
Yeah.
yourself.
I wasn't trying to be who I thought they wanted. I'm just going to go in like this and see what happens. And I didn't know what they wanted. And turns out it was this.
Did you do any prep? Like, were you already a Peloton member? Did you watch like other Peloton
No.
instructors like Bex
No,
or
no,
Bat?
I didn't know. No, obviously I did some research on the company and what they were about, and you know, I did know Bex Gentry, who was I followed her on Instagram for years, so I was very familiar with what they were doing through her because she was in the UK and we were sort of mixing in the same circles. I think there's a photo wafting round there somewhere from. We were both did a talk somewhere in London, and it was before both of us were Peloton instructors. And we're just stood next to each other. Yeah, it's out there in the ether somewhere. Yeah. So I was sort of knew about them, of course, and the bikes were just huge. So I knew about them as a company, but I deliberately decided not to sort of research other instructors and how they show up because I didn't want it to influence how I was going to show up.
Yes.
Does that make sense? I just thought I'm just going to be me, and if I'm right, then they'll go with me, and if not, then it wasn't meant to be. So that was very much my attitude.
I'm so happy you kept it real because that's why we gravitate to you, Susie, because you're just so energetic, full of life. You're just very fun to take classes with. So if you haven't checked out Susie on the Peloton tread, you guys have to. She's amazing. She's got some excellent 60-minute 80s runs out there, and just check her out.
And then the other thing which I really enjoy about my job is I love music. I'm a bit of a music buff, a music quizzer. Honestly, I love music, and it's a huge part of our job. So if people don't know, so we put together classes, and some of them are fitness first, like intervals or endurance runs, but a lot of them we have with music because people like a certain type of music. So it would be like 90s rock or 80s music or new releases, and so we celebrate music, and it's very much core of what we do. And I get to make playlists, which I still enjoy. We have to playlist all of our classes ourselves, so we have to have a bit of an extensive knowledge about music itself. And so for me, I do enjoy having a little deep dive now and again into like a 90s grunge moment or something like that. I enjoy it.
So what is your favorite program or class to program? So is there like a certain genre that you gravitate to personally?
Two. I'm so very much rock.
You like
rock? I like rock, and I also like quite heavy dance music. Yes. But we can run to both of those, right? So this and maybe because I'm a runner, I like both of those sorts of music types. And now and again, I will do a class, and I'll say, this is literally what I'm listening to right now. This is what's on my running playlist, and it's always quite upbeat, motivating.
That kind of makes it a little easier to program your playlist then if you're like, I'm already listening to all this stuff.
I listen to nearly all of my playlists out, because I do obviously a lot of my own running, so I will check out a playlist. I'm out running, seeing how it works, how it flows. Maybe I'll swap some songs around. So yeah always a work in progress, that one.
Well, you are going to love, or you might hate, one of Erica's final questions.
She's just going to look through her list and give me one of those.
Well, it's too hard to pick. It depends on your mood. It's going to be this music. It's so hard to pick, doesn't it?
It is. That is a very difficult question. A lot of people have found. So
it's not singular. You can ask me another day and it would be something different.
True.
Susie, something else you've done recently is you wrote a book, and Erica here is the big book reader. She has read your book twice, listened to it once. I think Erica has a ton of book questions, and inside that book are a ton of running stories that we would love to hear.
Yes, I have lots. I mean, Yes, I have lots of running stories. That's probably about a quarter of what's happened to me. Some of the runs I've done, I had to sort of filter out, like, decide which ones were the big hitters. But yeah, I've got stories for days about running.
Well, I feel like maybe we could get everybody to read your book, which is great.
Please do.
And then maybe we can get an exclusive, like if there was some other race that you couldn't include in the book.
I can tell you about one because I really wish I had put it in there actually, because it's one. Because people ask me about some of the one of the most weirdest experience I had running, and actually it didn't make the book, and I don't know why. I just in the end it's like, oh yeah, that happened, didn't it?
So we love those kind of stories too. So yeah, if you want to share a story that didn't make the book, I think that would be beneficial too.
So I've run in some sort of peculiar places as well. I've run in a few jungles, less fun than the desert. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my God! Can I just tell you? I can't believe you ran. And I am so afraid of bugs in general that
honestly,
you could not pay me enough to go to a jungle.
Don't. So two things. I've now got two things that didn't make the book.
Okay.
I don't like bugs either. I've run through a few jungles. Horrendous.
I get the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it.
Horrendous. Every time I fell over, which was very frequently. This is a race I did called Jungle Ultra, and I ran from the Andes down to the Amazon basin through the Amazon rainforest, self-sufficient. Everything got wet by day one. I had bugs in my food, and I was just eating the bug. I had nothing else to eat, so I just had to eat. I remember looking around at some sweets I had, and they just had the holes in where the bugs had gone in, thinking, I'm just going to have to eat this.
You got to do what you got to do. I mean,
it was horrible. But every time I fell over, I was just instantly covered in ants that were biting me. It was horrible. Anyway, that is in the book. It was honestly, it was one of the hardest things I did. But I don't like spiders. I have a real issue with spiders.
That's a hard pass.
Not in a different jungle in a race in Costa Rica, which I've done a few times now. It was a multi-stage race, of course, and it was maybe the third day, and they said, oh, be careful down Tarantula Alley. Like, they were just doing a race briefing, and they just threw that in there, like a little throwaway. Oh, just be careful around Tarantula Alley. And then on mile 9, and I was like, can we just rewind? What is Tarantula
Alley?
awful.
No.
It basically, we had to run through about half a mile of tarantula nests. It was the fastest mile. It was the fastest half mile I've done in my life. I was 5-minute miling through that thing. I was like, get me out of here.
Yeah, I believe you.
I was like, this is horrific.
Did you make it through unscathed?
I did. I decided, because I'm so scared. If I'd saw one, I'd probably I paralyzed with fear. So I was just looking ahead, and I was just praying to God I didn't fall over. I've done that race 3 times. I know that bit. I paired up with somebody the last 2 times. I was like, I'm just waiting. I'm going to wait for somebody to be with me and just like cling on to them.
I would draft behind them, like just try and be like, oh my God, just go.
Horrible.
Oh goodness.
So that's one story I didn't make it in. And another one, and again, this is animal flavored. I tripped over an alligator once.
Whoa!
I didn't see it. Didn't see it there. And
Wait,
it was obviously. It was clearly there because it was quite big. And I was absolutely out of it. I was running in Florida in Keys 100. Have you heard of that race? It's quite
Yes. Oh my God, that was just in Florida. Oh.
You tripped over an alligator?
I think it was an alligator. I'm going to say this, it was about 5 foot, whatever it was. It was a massive lizard. Mm-hmm. It was a massive lizard. And it was just by the side of the road. And it was just fine. It was just chilling. And I was about 65 miles in, so I was a little bit like, just like, and then I was with my husband, because I make him run a lot of races with me, and he was running ahead, and then I just fell over it, and I was like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? And he was like, it's a 5-foot lizard, how could you not see it? Because he just ran around it and carried on.
Susie, we have this thing, we call it the code brown, and a code brown is obviously, like, we know what a code brown is.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't see it, because I don't know what I think I probably would have been like, I need to DNF immediately. I don't know.
So I always ask our guests to give us a good code brown story, and a code brown isn't like actually crapping yourself. It's just an oh crap moment. And I use 2 examples all the time. I go like running into a bear or running into an alligator. And we had someone already who ran into a bear, and now you finally did it. You're our first guest who's actually.
It was, yeah.
My example has come true. You run into an alligator. You didn't just run into. You literally ran into it and tripped over an alligator.
I tripped over it.
Holy shit!
Honestly, I was terrified. It was kind of dusk, and I was so sort of like I was just thinking about something else, and because it's like just to explain, Keys 100 is a straight line road, so it goes ever so slightly right at about 67 miles. So you zone out quite easily in that race. So I zoned out until I fell over this massive lizard.
What did the alligator do?
Nothing. It just, I mean, I was like, I didn't look. I just ran really fast. And then it was just still there. It was just nothing. I mean, it was just chilling.
Completely unfazed. You're probably like not the first one that tripped over it.
I mean, it was lying in the spot. Yeah, there's loads of us.
She might be the first one, to survive and talk about it.
Or that.
I was overtaken, I'm pretty sure, towards the end of that race. So other people made it past.
Oh my God, what a story! That's awesome. That's awesome, and I'm glad you're okay. Like I would have been like, oh my God. I mean, I had a wild pig chase me the other day, and I freaked out.
Yeah. Cows. We have a lot of cows in the UK. Cows in fields, and I had some of them chase me in a field once, but that was, I'm sort of fine with a cow because we see them quite frequently here in the UK. So you just have to leave the field at the nearest sort of climb over the fence. So that was okay. I don't see alligators very often. I'm from the UK.
We don't see them either.
But you have so many excellent experiences that you recap in your book. And one of them that I have a personal fascination with that is on my bucket list someday is Badwater. Oh. And you are actually, were you the first person from UK or first person
from Europe?
Europe to do the Badwater Cup, which is Cape Fear. So that one's in, is it North Carolina, I think?
Yeah, North Carolina.
And then you did Salton Sea, and you did that with one of your friends.
Yeah.
And then you did the Badwater 135, which you made an excellent documentary on, which you can watch from your Peloton tread. I'm just going to keep dropping all the
You can also watch it on YouTube as well. It's called 135. Yeah, just Google Susie Chan 135. Yeah.
But it is fascinating. So tell us a little bit about how that all happened, because you had to do it in one calendar year.
Yeah, I always wanted to do Badwater. So it's one of the, as an ultra runner, when I started ultra running,
kind of the pinnacle, right?
It's there. Yeah, it's right up there. And I used to say I want to do that race without really knowing about the race. And I think it's one of those races that doesn't seem so bad if you haven't been there. And I said, I really want to do this race. And it's quite hard to get into. You have to be invited. Only 100 people get invited annually. And in order to be invited, you have to do an application and answer some questions. And then it goes to a board of people who select you. And it seems like a lot, but I swear to God, there's a reason for that, because that race is not, it ain't playing. That race is not playing. And it's quite hard to get selected because you need to have experience. And that's there for very good reason, because it is in a very remote part of the world. It's in the hottest place on earth at the hottest time of the year. And just, I'll make, anybody that's listening to this that's been to Death Valley, just to be completely transparent, if you get into trouble in Death Valley, you are hours and hours away from help. You are a long way from any help at all. There's nothing for miles, absolutely miles. No phone signal, nothing. So you need to go into this race knowing what you're signing yourself up for. And one of the things which can help you make it be invited to that race is to have crude. So as you move through the desert, obviously there's no taps, there's not a toilet,
right,
there's nothing. There's 2 petrol stations, nothing. So you need crew to give you fuel, water to keep you alive, basically. The average life expectancy in Death Valley is 14 hours, just to make that clear. How dangerous.
Very inhospitable out there.
Very dangerous. And so I was like, I need to get on a crew because I need to see it, and then I'll have more of a chance of getting there. And then somebody who I ran MDS with knew how much I wanted to do this race and got in, and he invited me to be in his crew. And I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna see the desert. And I swear to God, I had no clue. I'm from the UK, right? I've been to the Sahara Desert, right? There's nothing compared to Death Valley.
That is surprising. You think desert, but then, oh man, if Death Valley's worse.
There's something about Well, MDS, you're running the most I think I ran in any time I've run it was at 50 miles, okay, which is really, really tough, really tough because it's in a desert. You're running non-stop. You're running that you start at night, so you miss a night's sleep immediately. You're a night down, and then you run through the day, the heat of the day in the hottest place on earth. And then you run through another night if you're like me, and you take a little while, and you're going over 3 mountain ranges, and you finish the last 13 miles are up something like 9,000 foot. It's this absolute. You go from the lowest point in North America to the highest point in contiguous USA. So you go from the lowest to the highest in 135 miles. So it's insane. So I went along as crew, and by night two, I was just completely out of it. Like, oh my God, I can't believe people are doing this themselves. And I sent a message to my run group, my friends, in capital letters saying, never, ever let me enter this race. Never. And that's what it said. And then I came home and I was like, forget it. That's like, it's on its own orbit. Like I can run like tough races, but I can't do that. And so I went through this cycle of then being asked by other Brits who got selected into the race. They, she's crew, she'd be good at crew. So I went back 3 times as crew. And each time I'd go back and think, right, going to sign up after this. And I would see it firsthand and think, no, I'm sorry, no, that's too hard for me. And then the third and last time I crewed, and I sort of fell in love with the race and the place and the community, because it's a great community, the Badwater community. And the third time I crewed, I was with a really eminent, you should interview her, British UK ultra runner. She's been at the top of her game for all the years I've been ultra running.
Write it down, Erica.
Yeah, her name is Debbie Consani Martin. Yes. Debbie, she's phenomenal. She's course record almost all of the ultra marathons in the UK. A phenomenal runner. So I was crewing her, and she started throwing up at about mile 30, and she threw up for 102 miles.
Oh my God.
I didn't see anything go in there. She was just throwing up more than was going in it. Anyway, and about 112 miles in, she was throwing up, and then she just looked me dead in the eyes and said, you know you're going to run this race. And I was like, oh God.
As she's throwing up, this is so worth it.
And I was like, I know. So I entered. And then I'd already entered another one of the races, which was Salton Sea, because I thought this would be another rung in the ladder. I'll get a little bit closer by degrees. And so I'd already entered Salton Sea. I'd applied for Badwater, got selected for Badwater. I thought, I'm just 50 miles. I'm like one more race to go to be the first European, and so I thought I might as well. It was a tough year, but I won one race, and it was the shortest of them all. I thought I've got to do that, and it'll be a good training one. So that's how I ended up doing all 3 in a year. It was a year.
Awesome.
I love it.
We love the documentary. It is the only time I've done a Peloton bike ride without Matt Wilpers in front of me.
Oh,
right. So we loved it. After we watched it, we came on the podcast, we talked about it, and we drew up like our dream crew. And I want to know, how did you pick your crew for when you ran Badwater?
I knew who my crew were going to be. I mean, it had to be my husband, who, poor sod, he's seen me in the broad range of emotions that exist. That he's seen me at my worst, and also I have this sort of, like, I can just be really like honest with him, exactly honest with him. So he was only ever going to be, he was like my emotional support guy, because I can look very weak in front of him and it's fine. So there was him. There was a guy called Chris Howe, Dr. Chris Howe. So he is a PhD in ultra running. I have been his guinea pig for various experiments over the years. Lovely guy. And his demeanor is very calm. He's very organized. He is an ultra runner himself. He's done Western States, UTMB. So he knows running, very experienced. Plus he was just, his brain is like a scientist. So he was on the heat training, he was on the salt tablets, he knew exactly what I should have going in, and went spreadsheets, super organized. So he was crew chief, because my husband didn't want I couldn't have his crew chief. So he was like the super organized guy. I then asked Debbie to come back and crew me, because Debbie is, you have that cool friend that you just want to be cool in front of. That's Debbie. So I had her because I thought if Debbie's there, I won't want to look like I won't want to be rubbish in front of Debbie. So she was there to sort of, for me to try and just pull my socks up a bit. And she was phenomenal. I don't know how she did it. She got me running after 120 miles. I didn't think I could run a step. And she made me run. She got another 15 miles out of me running. I don't know how she did it. And then so Debbie was in, and then lastly, I really wanted to capture the moment. I wanted a nice picture, at least for the Instagram. And I've got another friend who is a phenomenal videographer. He's also a very calm guy. He can survive on no sleep. And that's my friend Phil. He's also a very accomplished runner himself. And so he was in, and then, but amongst them all, they were all very calm, undemanding people. They'd be calm under pressure. They'd get on together in the car because they have to, because you're in a car for 2 days in Death Valley eating just donuts or something awful. So you need to think about how that dynamic's going to work. And it was just the perfect grouping of people.
Yeah, you nailed it with your crew, because you did it. You made it through the desert. I know you were having some knee pains.
Oh, I was everything hurt, Erica.
Oh my gosh, right?
Every fiber of my being hurt by the end of that race.
I can only imagine. I have not myself traveled out to Death Valley. I mean, the farthest I've gone was Palm Springs, and that can be pretty. That can be pretty nasty too. But oh my gosh,
go to Death Valley in July. Have a look at it. I mean, you get out the car and you're like, "This, forget it," and get back in the car.
I don't even want to go outside my own house in July because it's just too.
It's it was it was so hot, so hot.
But huge congratulations to you, Susie. That is just a feat that I can only imagine doing someday.
I mean, it's genuinely, and I do say this. I genuinely mean it. So I am just an ordinary person. Who likes running, and I think that the secret is wanting to do it. You've got to want to do it. You can be. I mean, I don't know. There were people that were running that race like 20 hours faster than me, and I don't know how they did it. Like phenomenal. I'm not that level, but I did it.
But you're still,
and that's what matters. And so, and I think it's just, if you want to do it, just sign up for it and just have a little bit of belief and faith in yourself, because if I could do it, it's totally possible. It's a state of mind more than anything.
And Peloton did an amazing job with that documentary. Like that was phenomenal. They did a great job. I'm so happy they did it. I love that's the content I love to watch. It showed all
the real points. Like there are highs and there are very low lows.
I was like, Phil, if I'm throwing up, I want you to capture everything. You've got it, because it wasn't easy. It was not easy. And I was like, you have to capture everything. Everything. Yeah.
Great job,
you did a
Phil.
wonderful job. Yes.
Lots of people to thank, like Phil and Alan on this episode.
Yeah, Phil and Alan, what guys,
What's a bucket list race coming up for you, or maybe something you got on the horizon that you really want to do?
I mean, Western States, it's on everyone's bucket list. We just can't get in the thing, can we? Western States. Yeah. I mean, I was.
Do you have lottery tickets in already?
No, because I didn't do a qualifier this year. I had a lighter year this year because I was a bit knackered from last year.
Fair enough.
And Badwater isn't a qualifier for Western States. Don't. It's not. It's not got a big enough race field to be a qualifier. So I was like, sweet, I've done my qualifier. So I need to re-qualify, and then I'll go in the massive ballot with 10 million other people and not get to all of us. So that's the one.
I gotta tell you, so back in 2023, I ran my very first 100-miler, and it was a qualifier. And I had to I'm like, if I don't throw my name in, I'll never forgive myself. But I was watching the ballot that year, and I'm like, please don't pick me. Please don't pick me. Because I don't have the skills. I'm not a mountainous runner myself.
Neither am I.
Developing them.
Neither am I.
It takes some work. And I was just like, please don't pick me. But what was funny is they actually did pick somebody else from our pod fam. Her name was Michaela. So she got to run it, and she did phenomenal last year. So
yeah. Well done to Michaela. I mean, I don't know if I'll be any good at it, but it's the original, it's the OG, isn't it?
Right.
The OG 100-miler. So
super, super cool. Well, I hope you do someday get to run Western States, because that would be amazing. And you get to experience all that California has to offer.
Yeah.
The advice Michaela told us was, if and when you get in, they have like a Western States training camp like 3-4 weeks before, and you go and run part of the course with a bunch of other people. And she just said that whole experience was amazing. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
something
That's
for both of you when you both do it.
worth
And
knowing.
and
Thank
I'll
you.
come and Phil can come and we'll document the whole thing.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Well, Susie, we have a couple last final big questions. I prepped you for this just before, and then we'll get going. Thank you so much for your time and this opportunity, but I'm going to go
It was a
first.
pleasure.
My last question is, it's 2025 now, and On the Runs is going to have this big pasta dinner, and every guest from our pod fam is welcome to the dinner, and they all get to bring a +1. You can bring anyone, like a running friend, a training partner, maybe a running legend or an Olympian. They can be alive or dead. Who are you going to bring to our pasta dinner?
So I initially thought Jeffrey, my fellow Peloton instructor here in the UK. Then I thought I can have dinner with him anytime, so not him. I'm going to bring Lewis Hamilton, Sir Lewis Hamilton, who is
Yes,
who is
This is gonna be
Britain's
a great
finest
dinner party.
sportsman. So I will go just because you know, in my head, we're best friends. Like so, you
Yes.
know, I'd have a lovely time with Sir
I
Lewis
would
Hamilton.
love to have Lewis. I'm a big motorsports person. It's funny, we had Bex on last year for the first episode of the year, and she was huge into F1 too.
Yeah, I'm from a place called Woking, where one of the major teams is from. So I grew up surrounded by F1, and I'm a big fan. I go to the races and love it.
Very
So
cool.
Lewis Hamilton.
More the merrier.
Great choice.
Yeah.
I would love to
Tell
have
him to
him.
bring George Russell. Who else?
I'll bring any of them. I'll bring any of them.
I
I'm
want,
not
I want
lazy,
Daniel
but
Ricciardo. He's adorable, so he can come too.
Do you know? Does he run?
Lewis does run. Yeah.
Ooh, we
Yeah,
should get him on the pod.
now and again he shows and he's on a Peloton. I'm like, oh, I wonder if he does my classes.
I hope so. If not, get on that, Lewis. Let's go.
He does, yeah. I mean, he does it. He does it as his training. Now and again, he'll be out and you'll see him videoing himself, and he's out for a run. You're like, oh, come on with me.
Perfect.
Yeah, F1 has blown up here in the States recently. I'm a big NASCAR guy. I used to work in NASCAR,
Love
actually,
NASCAR.
changing tires and
Eric, we need to offline about NASCAR. I love NASCAR. I went to Austin to watch the in the circuit of the Americas to watch the F1.
Yeah,
brilliant.
big rate. I'm so involved. Worked in it many years of my life. I got run over once too and broke a lot of bones.
I love NASCAR. It's so scrappy. I love it. I watched a bit of NASCAR. I watched a bit of NASCAR and Indy as well.
Well, hey, you're welcome anytime when you come to the States to come camp with us at the racetrack. We camp at it every year. We do a couple of races occasionally.
Yeah, because we
side,
have the Loudon, the track in New Hampshire that he goes to every summer. So
I love it. Yeah, I'm always.
We spend the whole week, the kids and everything. It's a huge family event. It's a blast.
Yeah, if it's not running, it's motorsport for me. So
you know what's crazy though?
Perfect.
Like in my college years, I would be drinking at these NASCAR races all the time. Now I'm the guy in the morning waking up, running around the huge property they have, training for whatever race I have coming up, and everyone's like waking up from a night long of drinking.
Yeah,
priorities.
We all get older. We all get older, Eric. Yeah. More sensible.
All right, Susie. So my last question. This has to do with music. We have a very awesome Spotify playlist, and we like to invite our guests to add a song to it. So, at the moment, what song are you feeling the most that you think would vibe with our playlist?
Right now, it was #1 in the UK in 1996. It is from a group from Essex called The Prodigy, and the song is called Breathe.
Excellent.
I know the song.
It's
I know that's awesome. Bringing one back from the 90s. I did not know they're from the UK though.
Yeah. The Prodigy, Breathe.
So that's your jam right now. Like, is that playing quite a bit every day?
Yeah, I had it on a playlist not that long ago. I watched a TV program and it was on that. And it's that album when it came out. It's from an album called Fat of the Land. That is like, if you want to go out for a run and you want to stay at that tempo pace, that's the album for you. It's relentless. It's relentless. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So, Susie, one more question before we let you go. You have completed the 6-star journey.
Yes.
Now, with all of the new races that are coming out, are those on your bucket list?
I mean, I'm already looking at flights to Australia. So, you know, it's just, I don't know. When does it end, Erica? When does it end?
It's not going to, but people keep asking me. I finished my journey in 2023, and I changed my Peloton leaderboard and my Instagram name too. I am 6-star Erica. So people are like, "Are you going to be
Sydney, Erica?
Are you going to be Exactly. Are you going to be 7-star, Erica? I'm like, it doesn't have a nice ring to it. I got to keep the
It's a
6.
bit odd, isn't it? Yeah.
It
But
does.
anyway, yeah, I'm obviously gonna go. It's obviously
Australia, here we come.
yeah. Take my money. There we go. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to follow that journey. I'm 0-star Eric. I got Ironmans under my belt, but we'll work on those. I might get my first star this year. I might do
Okay.
it in New York. We'll see. But Susie, thank you so much. Real quick, what are the toppings you put on your pizza? I love pizza. I eat it almost
I
like
love pizza.
weekly.
Okay, don't judge too harshly. Okay, so if
Don't
I'm in the
say
middle
pineapple.
of okay, yes, anchovy, and pineapple. All right, that's where we're going.
I love pineapple. I can't get on board with anchovy just because I don't like
Salt.
fishy things. But salt, you could just put salt on my pizza or extra cheese,
Yeah.
maybe. But that gets
Partial
into
to a
weird
mushroom as
stomach
well, but you know.
You pineapple people. My wife's the same way. I'm like, you don't put pineapple on pizza. What are you doing?
Right.
So
It's fine.
I'm a
Don't
meat
worry about
lover's
it.
pizza
ham
guy.
and pineapple. Let's go.
Well, Susie, this was awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for coming on the pod and kicking off the new year with us. Thank you for responding to my email, and obviously, thank you to Alan for getting you out the door.
Thank you,
And
Alan.
thank you, Catherine. You're awesome.
Yes,
Setting everything
Catherine,
up.
you too. You're great. Thank you so much. Erica, that was super cool. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Susie Chan on the On the Runs podcast. That was wicked awesome.